Okay, my lovely Colleen, and hello everyone for joining. This is Dr. Sarah Smith, and today, I'm pulling my magical earphones out. So I have with me the most amazing special guest. We've been laughing hysterically even before we got on the call. Colleen, thank you so much for joining me today. And actually, you know what? I want to make sure it's Colleen Coles with an S. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Because I was like, is it Colleen Cole? No, it's Colleen Coles.
There's many of us.
Yeah, right. Right. So we are going to get into the story of like who you are and what you do, because of course, as you heard me before we started recording, I really want to like chomp to the bit of that. But before we do this, I want to share really how we got to know each other, because there are just certain people in your life, at least for me, that just kind of come in and magically at the right times, and you don't really know how or why, but you're like, I know I need to know this person, and maybe one day I'll figure that out. And that was Colleen in my life. And so we had met through Rebel. And interestingly, I'm sure that I saw you at the conference. Gosh, this was back in, I'm not the best at dates. I want to say 2019. Does that?
But I just had a baby. Yeah. And
okay. Yeah. And so, yeah, it was 2019. And I think I had seen you throughout the day, but we never really had an opportunity to speak. And it was when we were leaving. And what I remember is like, you and I both were just like, hey, like who are you? And we need to know each other. And then from there, like we just kept gravitating and having this natural connection. So, and your energy is just so vibrant. And we then just did an energy mastery training together this weekend. And so the two of us are like, just feeling all the good vibes right now. So again, I'm just really glad to have you on.
Thank you.
Yeah, yes. So we ended up doing some coaching, right? Like you had come to me. And so I would love to just start with where were you before and like kind of right around the time that you decided to say, you know, I need to call Sarah Smith. And one of the reasons I want to bring that up is that I am not the best at advertising. Again, we were talking before the call. I'm like, Colleen, you have like everything as far as the, you know, like you're just amazing with being able to share what it is that you do and how you do it. I don't tend to do that very well yet. I'm getting better, but there usually people will have something that's like, I just need to call Sarah and I don't know why. So I would love for you to kind of speak to where you were and really what was going on in your business and your life.
Yes. And okay, great. So for me, where I was at was 2019, we met. It was kind of towards the end of 2019. And 2020 happened, then 2021. I was coming out. The words that come to mind are the baby inferno, the timing of
yes. That's perfect.
When like it's kind of hell, but it was for me because he had some digestive things and then he wasn't sleeping. And I'm more about like the big kids when I think about what kind of child I'm to. Yeah. Long story short, I just was not feeling myself, but I was starting to come out of like the ground again and starting to like spring again and grow a little bit out of the dark. And so, and I can really relate to what you just said too, of people have said, you know, I don't know why, but I need to come talk to you. And I think it's hard when you have poignant medicine because it doesn't fit in a box. And it's also it touches so many things. And it is about that energetic connection and that soul understanding, or that soul contract, if you will, in a positive way, a soul agreement that can't be expressed usually in words too much. Anyway, so I remember you and me, I remember talking to you because we had met, and I felt to me like we had really similar medicine, if you will, but you were of the pelvic floor and I was more of the mind. So we had that yin yang yet purpose, helping professional, successful women who liked quality things, like that vibe.
Yep.
Yeah. And a seeming honoring and respecting of the medicine that we have too. Like, I don't know, you've spoken a lot about wisdom, and I'm like, yeah, that's something with that. Anyway, so I remember it was like August of 2021. And
Yes.
I started to feel like, okay, I get to go to the gym every morning. I can make that happen. Like, I deserve that. And like, okay, I am feeling more myself in my business again. And at the time I was a mindset coach for a branding program, and that was helping reinstill confidence. And like, I knew what I was doing. And so I remember calling you because I just felt like I didn't know how to restructure this new person, meaning literally I had never grown up with habits or routines or a lot of boundaries. And so I was like giving that to myself again, but it was bringing so much up just to tell myself it's okay to go to the gym every morning. Like, when I talk to my people, a lot of the times they're like, I want to have these new habits, or I have this, I want to get out of my own way, self-abandoning, and it's like, I see the energy and how we it's like feeling unsafe to literally do what we want and be who we are when we have connected to those that keep us safe and who love us and who is our tribe by being like them, which is the opposite of who we really are.
Preach it.
Yeah. So it was like, I remember I was in bed one morning thinking, okay, it's at 7 a.m. I want to go to the gym. And I was just laying there. It was 7:05, and then it was 7:10, and it was 7:15. And I'm just like, I want to get out of the bed, but I feel like this terror and fear is like in my fascia that I just can't get out because and I talked with a friend of mine, and it was like that I was threatening the power that I felt my dad had on me. Like, I wasn't able to speak up. I wasn't able to do what I wanted. And I had never really realized that in my bones, in my body, to not literally get up. And that's gave me so much more compassion a little bit of why I hadn't been doing what I wanted. But at the same time, I realized something had to change. So I called you because you were more of that embodied version kind of what I did. And so I remember when we talked, you just shared, I said, I feel like literally I have new bones when I walk up the stairs, and I can't figure out why I feel so weak. And you were the first person that I had met who was able in the moment to put that in words, like a metaphor of, Colleen, you're growing. You have not had structure. You are literally rebuilding your home of yourself. And so it feels like new bones. And I was just like, it was like that moment, my soul was sold to know. And I have a little flower hand. It just,
I love it.
yeah, it's from
Keep doing that. I love
Amsterdam.
It's amazing.
I just raw.
I love it. Exactly.
I just, yes. Okay.
I'm going to stop you for 1 second,
Okay.
because I just want to point out, like, you had the compassion for yourself, and like, that was then the catalyst, to make the call. Like, often, like that really was a key ingredient that you were willing to have. And then you knew that it was important to get support with that. And that's usually, I think, where, and you're in the industry, we're in the industry of self-help and embodiment and growth and desiring lifestyle shifts and transformation and big transformation. So, I think you're somebody that would have that. And sometimes others, they may get to that compassion piece, but then they may not take the next step. They may still want to desire, like, okay, let me still keep the old way and just plow through and get the habit, get the discipline, and not realize that there's so much more symbolism to it. And there's so much more that your body's trying to share. So I just wanted to like point that out, because that was like hugely profound. I feel like what you just said.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. So I put it in the metaphor that your soul was like, yes, never heard this before. I'm not broken. That was a thing that I think was really important in the beginning. I'm not broken.
Right. Yeah. I'm just a product of what has happened to me. And so now I get to change it. Mm-hmm. And I get to take responsible of my responses. So I decided to respond so that I could change it, because it's really hard to change it without tribe or I don't know, sisterhood, and to do it on our own. Cause like, let's face it, that's what we have been doing.
100%.
And we're not where we've wanted to be. So it's like reaching out to just get help when we're ready and really ready for it. So I remember where I was at was like having a hard time in my relationship. I don't think I was really owning my gift, and I didn't know how to explain what it was. And I also had a lot of shame that I was giving these women who are working with me and kind of finding me these amazing transformations. Like
yes, you
woman,
are.
Yeah. So a woman comes to mind, Andrea Goulet, and she has a really great business. She's very successful. She's one of my testimonials, but when we found each other, she had completed this range of where she wanted to be. She had a really great business. She was the CEO, but deeper down, she saw a new vision for herself that was kind of similar to my version of I can't go to the gym, even though I want to go to the gym. Her version was I want to be more intuitive and bumble around with my kids outdoors barefoot in the woods and take less time in my business. And after 6 sessions of working together, she had transformed that, and she had stepped down. She was still making what she had made and salary from her company, but she was able to embody what she had written from our welcome packet the first week. So I remember having this shame, and other healers and stuff have told me similar stories of just how can I really own this when I'm not a product of it? And but at the same time, I was like, okay, therefore I just need to find somebody who does what I do, but for me. I was searching for this version of me that could do what I did for others on me. Absolutely. And so that's when I finally decided to work together with you, because I was like, I think she's going to help me embody and literally grow these bones. So what I found
grow them, sister.
And they are strong. And I it was great. Let's see. So to testimony to your work, what happened that was really surprising was, with all of that being said, I think I was right. I needed somebody like me who got it, who embodied it, and who could help me find it within myself. What I didn't realize would happen in a lot of our sessions was that it was me feeling bold enough with a friend, sister, mentor to say, I actually don't want you to tell your story right now, which was really ballsy to say to a coach mentor. And I also don't want you to do your work on me. I actually want you to witness me doing my work on myself. Can you hold the space for me to do the work on myself that I have in my medicine on myself? And that was so profound, because one, it's in terms of the power dynamic with my father I had, and just to get to the gym, I mean, that would show up in all of the relationships I had with any type of role of authority. So whether it was a coach, a mentor, a teacher, it was just me always essentially giving my power up and me going a little under. Which doesn't serve me, especially when you know your authentic self more, and you just have to be bold to allow it out and claim the same equal playing field with them. Because I believe that we are all equally worthy, and it's just how much are we willing to let it out and shine, and bold enough to be enlivened by that. So it was really empowering, and also scary, thinking am I wasting my time? Am I wasting my money by just having Sarah hold my space? But it was not. And it was taught me just, again, to have that self-empowerment, but two, that my magic was magic, because I started to feel it on myself. And now I do it on myself. And it's still just challenging because I can kind of fall asleep, and it is helpful to have another human soul to interact with. But I even taught, I played with like the thought of getting people certified in what I do. And I taught a longtime client and student and kind of friend this method just to play with, okay, could somebody else do this besides just me? And the answer is yes. And I had a session with her from me, and it was so powerful. And I had the aha I needed. So full story was that it like it opened this portal, Sarah, to see my own power, to heal myself through my own medicine, which was also the medicine. And then to see that I could even teach it to others, and therefore experience it even more, to say, yes, this works. This is profound. This helps people feel authentically themselves. So.
Wow. Yeah. And thank you so much for sharing all that. I mean, it is just so beautiful to see your transformation, because, you know, I want to be careful on how I say this, because you have been so invested in your growth and development for a long time. So I do not want to be like, oh my gosh, you came in and like, we're such a hot mess, right? Because like, it's not at all what it was. But I think the word shame, and I really appreciate you being so vulnerable and truthful about the process with your dad, because that some of that familial stuff is really where I love, and I'm not afraid to go. Like, it's important to go there and to have those conversations and to literally reshift ourselves on a genetic DNA level, on a muscular level, on a fascial level, on a, belief and mind level. And so, there were just some of the most profoundly beautiful experiences, being able to lead and ask the questions, and then, right, like also step out of the way so that you could have the conversations with little you that you needed to have in order to really come back into your truth. And then not just that, because, like you said, like working with very beautiful, successful, and highly creative and empathic and intuitive people, like also being able to see you, as what I call it, like in your boardroom, right? And how your boardroom literally visually shifted into this shiny, magical, sparkly place where you could be you. So some of the visualizations that came in were just fantastic. And I really just appreciate you sharing that. Because it's not always easy, to kind of go, especially, in a recording and something that's kind of going to be out there for others, to be really, truly truthful about that. But it helps others be able to know, like, we are not broken and we are coming into ourselves. So, one of the other things that was really interesting coming out of the work, you mentioned like, the bones, and of course there was like hip stuff going on too, is that there was a lot of pelvic stuff that was speaking to you. And, so what I have loved is when you and I mean, we've of course connected many times, but like when we connected on like a deeper level several weeks ago, I think it was even kind of interesting to you. You're like, oh, wow. Yeah. Like, since we've been working, like, yes, a lot of things have just kind of gone from like here or wherever, and just kind of bloomed outward to where like you, girl, are just like, since we've been working together, and of course, just all these things, and like, you've kept doing the things, right? So it's never just one thing. It's not like, oh, the work with Sarah, it's just the thing. But like, since you've been doing all this stuff, like, I have been like the massive cheerleader on the sideline who's like, keep getting it. Like, you're doing it. Don't doubt. Like, it's happening. So can you just kind of speak to that? Like, I mean, because you just have been just taking off since then. So I'm just speak to it, Sista.
Yeah, sure. I know. Let's see. So when we were working together, And then it was like this platform of diving into a lake and going and swimming off into wherever I had to go next. But one, you know, I'm back in my business full time. I'm speaking. I'm definitely healing my relationship, because that was a big source of pain, and I'll speak to it. But also just overall a sensation of groundedness, pleasure, and allowing pain in a way that helps shift it through seeing it. And it was something that's a huge aspect of my work. Another way to say it is shadow work. But what I love about your perspective is how literally your energetic is so grounded. And it's like, then with the pelvic piece to bring in the anatomy and the true metaphor of like looking at the shit and being okay with the shit and the dark and the slimy sticky parts, and where pleasure is as well. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I just had always stayed up in my head and never brought my energy down. But some of the aspects that I was working to were, and part of me really wants to say, I just found out last night, but like, I feel like the Cherokee that you have in your bloodline might contribute to all this. And I think that's something I was attracted to that I didn't even know about. But just to say that, but.
And the Celtic too.
Yes.
Yeah. That combination is like, whoo. Yeah. I'm
Yeah.
finally owning that.
Cool.
Yeah.
So I was exploring at the time, just again, getting out of baby hell and realizing my body was my own, realizing a life could look kind of different, but stable. And in October of that year, we started working with, I remember 2022, I wanted my word of the year to be sex, because I was just like, I don't know, something's got to change. And I started to wake up, if you will, in November and December of the previous year to say, wait a minute, like I'm actually not that happy in my relationship. I'm actually a sexual being, and that's okay. And what can we do to allow eroticism into my life? Like it's not this really terrible thing that I was afraid of or had a lot of shame on, or had dark stuff from like past Catholic slash patriarchy stuff. And that's a big word to unpack, but like basically me not knowing as much and it being as valid as what I was told through my religion. Puritan stuff through being American, and pleasure being dangerous, especially for an ambitious woman, especially for somebody who wants to sit equal at the table as men. I never turned on that side of myself because I didn't want to be valued as less and disrespected. So I had waited till marriage because I realized, oh my God, this is a way that I don't have to get a divorce like my family got, because it'll find me true love and I'm going to be respected for my intellect and all these things, and strong in myself, which it did help me kind of with that. And I did have my first sexual experience with my husband. We didn't get married that day, but it was really interesting to see that sexual journey, even after being married, was just shut off in itself, like was so tight. But in 2022, when we worked together, that was starting to be turned on, and I was starting to not be able to ignore it anymore. And people were coming into my world, especially as I kept doing like the shadow work and stuff, where they were attracted to me, but I was attracted to them, and that had never happened. And oh my God, what does this mean? And so that year of working together, like I was starting to really explore polyamory, because a big facet of my life, my soul, my work is that being really, really true to your authentic self desires will always be the best choice, will always be the best choice. And it will always help others in ways that they don't know they need, but will literally help the entire unit. And I have a family now. I mean, what's crazy is, God, my son is now 3. I mean, that's when my parents were getting a divorce. And so therefore the times before were when my parents were having a really hard time. And that's transgenerational crap coming up, but it was really coming up. And so you helped me navigate that hugely. because there was somebody in my life that I had met at the gym that we just wanted to connect through respecting each other's intellect and respecting each other's perspectives in the world. And so, but then it did blossom into something we never, what's the word? I never got out of alignment of my agreements with my husband, nor did he with his person.
Right.
So all of that to say, it's weird to talk about because it's such an exploration of self, and I'm not polyamory right now.
No.
But
Which
I'm
also
not,
came up,
yeah,
you
go
know,
ahead.
that towards the end, like towards the end that came up. You know, it's hard to talk about, again, because we've been conditioned not to talk about it. And the truth is, though, is that we need the safe space. And I feel like that's one of the things that doing pelvic floor therapy for as long as I did really taught me, is that, you know, you can be you. And all we need to do is just allow the room to breathe, like a fine wine, right? Like you have to let it breathe. And then it all just kind of works itself out. And that's what again, we're bold enough to, like, I call it like going into the trenches, you know, like you know, there was a lot of doubt, but there was also like this pull, and you were down to surf. You know what I mean? You're like, I'm just gonna surf here. Yeah.
And that's cool that you say that, because in 2018, this is when it all really started for me, where I was deciding to jump off the deep end in January 2018 and just go full-time in my business. I had always been part-time and trying to figure it out, but I like quit the coffee shop job and I just went all in, and I had a really couple rocky months, and then things started to pop a little. But I went to see this healer, John of God, in Brazil, and my mentor, Gabby Bernstein, had been there and just raved. And I was like, I really think this is the year I really want to go. And so I was able to manifest that. And that was such a cool experience in my life of manifesting one step at a time, and do what you can with what you have from where you are, and boom, miracles happen. And part of that trip as a miracle was a friend of my husband and mine was going to be in Rio the weekend after my trip to see John of God. And we found this out before, and I was like, what? And he was like, yeah, I already have an Airbnb. Do you want to come with me and like just stay, and we'll just, and I'm like, yes, because I surf. And so I did go. I was in the ocean, and I was looking around and realized like this was literally my vision being manifested. I had no idea it was going to happen that way, because I kept seeing these weird mountains in my mind and affirming it every day. But then I finally realized it would happen, but I had no idea I was going to go to the beach really that week. So and then I was out in the ocean, and I basically saw these hands waving up and down in the ocean. And I was like, what? And then all of a sudden lifeguards were around me, and I was like, what? And they said I was too far out. But then I said, I think this person needs help. And we went, and this was African boy there, way far out. And he got on my surfboard, and essentially we saved his life.
Oh, wow.
Because I was in the right place at the right time. How did I get there? By not giving a fuck, and by having fun, and by following my vision and doing what I wanted. And that was a huge lesson.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
So coming back to shore, he was okay. And the lifeguard was hot AF. And I was just, whoa, like, and so he was like, what was cool is he said, if I hadn't seen your blonde hair, I definitely would not have seen him. So I was this little catalyst person, but I was like, okay, and like very distracted by his Speedo. And I was just like, okay, but I'm gonna go. And later,
I love it.
He found me later and was like, hey, we're gonna have drinks. And I'm like, yes, I want to go. And my friend was just like, no, I don't. And he kind of gave me some shame. He's like, what about, Michael, my husband? And I was like, I'm traveling. It is good. But I was like, no, get out of here if you don't want to have fun, and like kind of dive in. All this to say, so me and that lifeguard, I wasn't drinking because I had just finished this like spiritual protocol cleanse thing. But we went to the rocks and sat and got to know each other. It was so beautiful. And he invited me to go surfing the next day. And I was like, yes. And there started to feel like a chemistry there. And so that night, and Rio's nuts. I got this girl to come up to me the first night. And she's like, I like you. And she literally grabbed my face and kissed me. And I was like, whoa. And she like started making out with me. So like that, plus these tingles happening, I was like, I got to call Michael. Something's going on. Speaking to the point of authenticity, which also means honesty and truth and integrity to me. And I think, Sarah, that's why it's so hard for people like myself who have explored this other path to talk about it, because I think for others in the paradigm, having other types of relationships equals cheating, you are a prostitute for some reason. Right. And it doesn't. And so I don't want to paint my picture that way, thinking it's going to be perceived in that way. And yet this was a huge, huge catalyst of my life, even to bringing it to where I help now, which is I help brave spiritual women live their dream life through healing sexual energy and through healing the childhood trauma or sexual trauma that could be inhibiting that. So I called Michael and I said, yo, this place is nuts, but it's really fun. Let's set up some guidelines. And he said, kissing girls, okay. Not kissing boys, not okay. Obviously no sex. I'm like, I can do that. But the final day I did go surfing with this gentleman named Paulo, and I was reading The Alchemist, and it was by Paulo Coelho. I was like, oh my God. Yes. And I'm like, I am. So we surf. I was totally pummeled by these waves, and we finally go, and he started to kiss my ear, and I said, I'm married. And he's like, oh. And I said, but I can practice some Tantra, and I have not, but we have some guidelines. And I told him the guidelines, and he agreed to that. And we went up to this lovely lifeguard little house, if you will, like where they watch out from. And it was so beautiful. It was like a movie. And I got to practice Tantra with this guy, Paulo. And so I microcosmic orbit and breathing and seeing his defenses collapse and like massage and pleasure just from that. Like it woke me up. And by the time that we were complete with everything after a couple hours, I remember he was in the back and I went out to look, oh my God. And I saw the ocean and it was so huge and like beautiful. And I realized how God was like literally right there. Like God was like in everything and in the parts that I had shame around, and like God was not leaving. There was no judgment. And like, it literally woke me up into realizing how black and white my life had been to Technicolor. And I was like, I cannot believe I've been living that way and that this was available to me. And so he respectfully just walked me home and we were connected, and it was so beautiful. And I felt so alive, and I felt a lot of shadow come up too once he left of who am I? Did I just cheat? I don't know. But I couldn't deny this authentic bubbling up of aliveness and energy. And when I realized, like, I would have thought this was wrong. I'm like, is this wrong? And I'm like, no, it is not wrong to be alive. It is not wrong to have pleasure. And I remember going back home and opening the doors to my little cabin in the woods where we lived, and literally coming home to mold. The house was filled with mold, and my husband was just on the couch, like living in this mold with my dog. He didn't even realize the shit that he had been in and that I had been in, but was wanting to get out of. But that was like the first day I said no to this other standard of life that I had been living. I couldn't not wake up. So I slept outside that night. I'm like, no, motherfucker, I am not here. You don't get it. I'm not. And so we cleaned it up, but that's what brought this journey into polyamory. And I had forgotten and thought it was done once I had a baby. I was like, oh, well, now I'm a mother, or now I don't feel my yoni anymore anyway. So
exactly. It doesn't feel like it's yours anymore.
Like
it literally changes. And you've had these like very profound moments, you know, I mean, you, in a lot of our conversations, you've spoken to that time, you know, where you went to Rio and had that John of God experience, or John of the Cross, right? John of God. It was John of God. Okay. John of God. And, you know, and so bring it like for sake of time, because I know I'm like, I want to keep going.
I know.
Hear all your stories. But like, so kind of share, you know, because there were some epiphanies, right, that were much more subtle. Like what you just described was massive, right? It was huge. Whereas I would definitely say that like the stuff that we had done together it was super subtle, like to the
Yeah.
point where
Yeah.
like you didn't even really see it. And I think a lot of that is because it was specifically from you. Like the biggest part of my alchemy is bringing in the essence of you, right? And so
Mm,
therefore it's a little more
mm,
sneaky, you
mm.
know?
Yeah.
So it's shifted you now into, into being able to work with women,
Yeah.
specifically with the
Yeah.
shame
Yes.
and these sexual energies. Talk
Yes.
like, yeah, just kind of share a little bit more about like kind of how you've gotten there and what that's been like to really
Mm.
just to be you and
Yeah.
and
Wow.
and really go through that, because it takes courage too.
Mhm,
Yeah.
mhm, mhm.
Yeah.
I remember one time we had a session, I was sitting in my bed and I was asking questions and we had a little bit of that inner child stuff. And it was like, you're like, okay, ooh, such a great session. I'm like, what did we do? Like, I don't even remember what we did, or like, I was like, basically trying to say like, is this enough? Like, did we actually do enough? Because it was so subtle. And because there wasn't this huge catharsis or,
Right.
pounding bomb going off of greatness or whatever. Like it was just really subtle, but you're like, yeah, no, that was, and then I was like, you were hitting the pinpoints we had talked on. I'm like, oh, that was huge. Oh, that was a big shift. And then to just embody it, like Rio, for example, that woke me up. That was huge. That
Yeah.
was part of an awakening.
Yes.
If I had those every day, I'd obviously like explode. So life is way longer than those moments. And like to be able to integrate it into our day-to-day experience and having day-to-day life be almost mundane enough to ride for a long time, but seeing the pleasure or the stability or the love in it is profound and kind of a goal, I think, because we want that good life to be ourselves and to be stable and strong and at peace and in love. So with life. So
Yeah, and we
I
can't
don't
always go for the big hits. Like it's
exactly.
yeah, like you
It can
said, you'd
disrupt
burn
so
out.
much. Yeah, you
Yeah.
burn out. And
Yeah.
so I'm even careful when people do my energy work, which is channeling and going to the trauma block in the body and then taking them through a journey of what it needs to heal in real time. A lot of
Yeah.
people cry in my office. A lot of them have huge, one of those big shift types of moments. And then like they come back and want it again and they want it again. And I totally get it because they've been working with counselors for years and haven't felt shifts. And then they finally see it. So, however, I'm just like, like I'm not feeling that energy, and that's okay. And that's enough. But we can kind of almost get addicted, I think, to the catharsis. And in
Oh,
fact,
totally.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, that's what a teacher recently told me was I was like, I don't think this work is working. She's like, no, you're just addicted to catharsis. But you have to break down in order to then have a catharsis. And you can't do that all the time and be alive.
Right.
So,
Well, I think it also speaks to the ethics. I'm big on like the ethics of healing
yes.
and just working with another human. And so what you're speaking to too is that you're really, again, not in your head, you're tuning in, this is my language, but like with your core, like with your true inner knowing as an ethical channeler, right? That, that you do your work, and that just because somebody wants it again and again and again, you're not up for that hit, like you
Right.
very much are in your lane. Like I know one of the things we were talking about several weeks ago was like, I tend to work with a lot of my clients, not all of them, but a lot of them for a super long time. And that really feels very mutually wonderful. Whereas, your like essence and true power is, and again, correct me if I'm saying this, but like, is kind of like you like come in and out, like, what was it? Like a wolf, you're like, oh, like this
Yeah.
leader. And I'm like, yeah. And to know the ethics of that just speaks volumes
Right.
to this work, because this is really pelvic work. And, stepping into that authenticity it's very precarious. I do believe, and it's also very needed. Right. And it's very, very special, and it's important to find the right people.
Yes, totally. And you were the first person that I heard of when the concept of a dirty healer. And I was like, whoa, like I've met some, maybe I even was, but I don't know, I didn't stick there too long because I think that integrity or that groundedness popped me out. Like, but you're so right. It's so important. And you really embody that too, and helped demonstrate that to me of like what that looks like, what that embodies like, what that feels like. And to know like it's not our job to make others happy, like in our profession yet, or in life, it's not our job to make others happy. It's our job to be true to what is coming through and to respond to life, to say yes to life, which might be saying no to another person. And that's okay, because I want to speak to the results basically that you helped me get, and also the results of stepping in boldly to saying yes when life called, to saying yes when I felt I wanted something, but then everything felt like it was the wrong answer. For example, to be polyamorous, or to go back to Rio and tell my husband I wanted to have an open relationship for 2 weeks. That felt wrong. And oh, by the way, the day I felt called, I realized it was our wedding anniversary. Like, talk about wrong. But like, the power of doing that and being that supercharger that just goes forward and then can let people have their experiences, but then they kind of fall into place and they can be mad if they want or not, helps everyone. So where I'm at now is my husband and I, we have a way more grounded relationship. I mean, from back in Rio, this happened, but also after working together with you and bringing up, because that's what happened that year I worked with you. Towards the summer, we worked in winter, spring, but in summer, I realized I wanted to be polyamorous again. I felt that was true to me. And my husband, and how I communicated it was really important, but he was on board to try. And so I was. And so what happened after that, and then where we're at now, is like we have a way more strong relationship, way more happy relationship, way more intimate relationship. So that was huge, because that was really dying and I was really, really scared. Another thing was just more healthy boundaries with my son, and like realizing like I get to say no to him, huge. And just my business too, like entering into my own lane that I was so afraid of doing. But then by summer, when I realized that this, like, I was like the group community manager for like a course called Orgasmic Manifesting. That's not even, and like, I didn't even realize, and then like waiting till marriage and studying Tantra, like this was part of my life. So then to own that, and that summer I launched a program that I still will be redoing. It's called Orgasmic Dream Life. And it's about how to claim your own sexual energy to then manifest your dream life, to stay on purpose, your authenticity, what you want in your life. And so we met actually, I think that day, and at a Rebel workshop thing pop up. And I was claiming it because look at this, like, I just read something. Well, people get scared of doing what they really want because of the reactions others will have. And it's true. Not a lot of people will really support you sometimes when you are authentically yourself. For example, that mindset coaching job, I started to, in my business, say, I help women with sexuality. You can use this energy for your advantage. The women I was helping in that program needed that. They told me, but the main coach of that program found out that's what I was doing. And she fired me that day that she found out. Huge, terrible. It sucked. But that same day, I had the Rebel conference thing to go to. And so I was like, I guess it's the time to step up into my authenticity. I guess it's the time.
Yes, it is.
So I went on mic and I met people, and it was like, I help brave spiritual people build their dream life through sexual energy. And that magnetism was huge. And I literally 4x'd my income the month I launched this program than I had made 2 months earlier with this coach. Like the power. I love it. So, I mean, it's hard to say like one thing did it and you spoke to that, but like, it's almost speaking to like fixing burnout and fixing these big cathartic things, to acknowledge, recognize, have compassion with. It is little sand building up to a big sand castle. Like you have to have those moments. And so if like, I'm just grateful. I'm really grateful that we work together, for you to show me my own power and like open my hips metaphorically to birth myself. And like to let all those scary places, but that life was fucking handing to me. It was him
Yes.
to turn me back on and to look at this. So all of this to say, and just one other huge shift was telling my husband when he was in a bath and I got in and I hugged him and I was just like, I just want you to know I'm not saying small anymore so that I don't hurt you. And I'm not saying small anymore so that you can feel okay and that I might leave you behind because I want to go to the gym every day and I'm going to say who I am and I'm going to be pretty and people might be attracted to it, but I'm not going to stay small anymore so you feel safe. And that was a huge moment because that's the scariest thing to think about, leaving our family behind when we're our authentic self. He was open to it, but I could even sense in that moment, he didn't really connect with me physically at that time. So I was like, this is just proof I need to keep moving. And I did. And I don't even know what things you're thinking about of these.
I love it. Well,
breakthroughs, but those were mine.
I know. I promise I won't go into coaching mode. It's beautiful. Like, he's allowed his experience too, and I think what I love, just to kind of wrap it up, because I know you have to go too, but so I want to be mindful of that. But like, there were these underlying things that were really big that it sounds to me that you were trying to deal with, that also were then getting like shoved back, but attempting to deal with it some ways, right? Like that are outward, but then also the majority and crux of it was like kind of still in the background. And what we did was which again, it's like, it was so cool because it was your medicine. It's like, we're kind of just bringing it both together, as we brought that very safely to the forefront. And when you could look at that, I call it going down the rabbit hole, and so it's like, nobody really wants to go down the scary, dark rabbit hole, right? Shadow work is, and so like, but when we do that, all of this beauty, like it just kind of starts integrating, and it takes these pieces of the body and the pieces of the nervous system and the endocrine system and our, energy system and our soul, and it just starts lining it up. And so then you don't have to work as hard. And what I love is like, it may look different for you because you're in it every single day, but me as somebody who has witnessed you and your unfolding, even just like since we've met each other and then since we've worked together, like it has just been really happening faster and beautiful. And it's like, you're just like the flowers behind you, like just so bloomed. And there's been different versions of that. And that's exactly the way it's supposed to be. You use the beautiful image again to bring it back to the wolf of like being this awesome like leader who's like leading the pack, and then the pack like comes behind you and they're like, they're doing the program with you, they're doing the work with you, and then they're like, it's like clunk, they're ready, and then boom, they go off, and then here comes like the next group. And it's just so fantastic to witness that within you, and to witness you fully embodied back in your pelvis and core, and how that manifests. Because I feel that. I just want to say how much I feel, that I've never, it's so interesting with this work. Like I've never seen you and your husband, right? Like physically like together, but like, I know with every cell in my body that like the intimacy and the connection that you all have is like so just juicier and like more in line than it had been in a while.
Yeah.
Like I just feel it. It's
and thank you. And to speak to that for anybody listening who can relate, like I still don't have a lot of sex with my husband, but it's not because we don't like each other. It's because we have a 3-year-old. And to even realize like, that's okay, instead of judging myself, how many times I was having it, not. What we do have more of with intimacy is literally like him seeing into me, I'm seeing into him. And it's that thing that we crave. I think even my clients who they didn't care about sex so much as for that partner to understand who they are and hold that and see it. And like, that's where the gold is, and where I feel even safe enough to let go with him, because he has the honor of stepping into my world more, of my space, of my yoni. So that friendship, that authentic, like, it all broke him open too, of me stepping into my authentic power and confidence. He had to look at his shit that was keeping him in a cage, and now he's out of it.
Yeah, there's nothing to fear, right? Like we tend to fear, and it's all going to be okay.
Yeah, because I think some of the things we worked on, and you might be alluding to, is like divorce, polyamory. I don't know, some of those triggery things that I don't even remember, but and we don't even have to bring them up. But I was like, I don't even know. Now I'm curious where.
I actually wasn't even going there, but yeah, no, I mean, right there. Yes. Like, I'm not even going to speak just to you, but for lots of people that come to me, there are things behind the scenes, such as, you know, so again, I'm not speaking directly to you, but like that are like a contemplation of divorce, or they are a contemplation of, you know, I have this beautiful outward perception that my business is going a certain way, or my career is going a certain way. And I'm really struggling internally to know where the fuck it is that I'm going. And so there are these things that are just, they're so, again, like they're so big. They feel so big that they're easy to put off. Right. Like even, you know, sometimes it's health things, you know, like it is the, oh my gosh, I've had this pain forever. I knew I shouldn't have ignored it. And now it's like really screaming loudly. So there's some of these just big things, and it's big because we're not meant to carry it alone.
That's what you said to me one time. And it was so helpful to realize, because I kept having almost shame that why was the shadow work I was doing on my own not really working for me? I can't access those memories. I need to even reprogram them or heal them, or sit in my circle with my shaman oracle deck and just fix it. And you were like, we are not meant to heal alone. African tribes know it. Native tribes know it. The truth is we can't access some of these things we need to in order to heal those outward things, because our subconscious won't even allow it, because it knows it won't be safe enough. But to be with somebody in tribe, or even sisterhood and connection and witnessing, is what then allows that to come up, because we are held, we are safe. So
yeah, it's in our DNA. There's research that shows that now. You know, it is literally a hormonal response. And so it's just, you know, from a hormonal chemical level, it's just not possible. And, you know, and that's why, again, that's why like the ethical healer piece comes in so much, because you have to find your people, you know, you have to find the ones that you're like, I can go to this one, you know? And it's just so vital, because when we're ready to kind of do these deeper shifts, like we're just not meant to do it alone. And that's okay. Even though as women we're, and especially again in the, well, just as women, I feel like, but especially like achieving women who want to be successful, you know, nobody wants to not be able to do it ourselves.
And like, be dependent on somebody. But but the thing is, like, I think working with Sarah, or what people have told me, is like they didn't feel dependent on us. No. Because it's like, when you're done, you're done. You don't want that. We don't need that. You and me, like, it's not a thing. And so, but learning the tools and being held through that witnessing is what is really profound. So, and necessary. I
just really, really appreciate your truth, and just seeing you just show so shiny and beautiful. And like, again, I hear a lot from like tone, and like you're just so resonant. Your tone is so resonant and so clear. And I just cannot wait to continue to see everybody. And I'll put the links below, but like of all the ways to follow Colleen. So do you have a program coming up?
I do.
And I think you have several things coming up, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Let's see. So Strong Not Mean is a program I do that's really cool. And it's one of those like 8-week quicker things that it's like the wolf pack, and then you split, because you're going to know the tools to do this on your own, but be held in a space group container, live workshops, to be able to have the catharsis, if you will, that is healthy, to then go and do it on your own. So Strong Not Mean it's all about how to communicate healthy boundaries, set healthy boundaries, and understand and regulate your own triggers, so that you can be your bold, authentic self without losing those you love. It's like
Awesome.
how to be the boss without totally being the bee, like not, and also not the doormat. Like,
Yeah. Yep.
yeah, so
Mm,
that's coming out, but I am doing like a free 4-week kind of training series to warm it all up and
cool.
pass tools around on the pillars, which is authenticity. It's really everything we've been talking about, but
Yeah.
authenticity, communication, boundaries, emotions, and triggers. So understanding all those pieces. So you can go to my website, ColleenColes.com, and kind of register for that free training series, and as well as the group program, because there's really, really good bonuses, especially when you just dive in early, such as calls with me and stuff like that, like one-on-one through the program for free when it's like a bonus. So I'm really lit up about that program. Orgasmic Dream Life will probably be on the summer. So just get on my email list to be able to know when
Yeah.
these things are coming out. And I do one-on-one healing work. One client told me, she's like, I think really what you do is you're a shamanic sexual healer. And I was like, ooh, okay. So
Good.
that's really great for that one-on-one stuff. But yeah, that's kind of what I have going on. Some workshops. I love speaking. So if anybody needs like a speaker out there or to do a
Yeah.
workshop, I'm doing one actually tonight with a fellow friend, pelvic floor therapist in Richmond, about how setting healthy boundaries help heal physical and pelvic trauma.
I love
So
it.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's
I
what that
so
got.
wish I was in Richmond for that. It's going to be amazing.
And then the last thing is that I'm on Instagram at Colleen.Coles, Colleen.Coles, and TikTok as well, and on Facebook, but you can just friend request me, whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it. Thank you so much for taking so much of your time. I just love
Yay.
you so much. I really, really appreciate your sharing. And everyone, please go follow Colleen, take one of her courses. She is truly a gifted speaker, and your email list is amazing. Sometimes, you know, the email list thing can get a little funky, but like yours, I always read, and I'm always like, oh yeah, it's such a great writer and so insightful. So I'm just sending everybody so much love. Thank you for watching. Goodbye, Colleen.
Bye. Thank you.